Hi, I'm George Pearson, and in this Photoshop Elements video, we'll be doing this magical effect snow globe. Now, if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, and of course share it with your friends through social media. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And to learn everything about Photoshop Elements, take a look at my complete training courses, and you'll find a link right down there in the description. Okay, let's get to it. In this snow globe picture, there are several images taken from different sources all kind of pulled together. Like the background here obviously is one picture. I went ahead and I've removed a dish that was sitting down here and replaced the top of the table. We then have the base, which I take from a different picture. Of course, the horse here is from another picture as well. And then the sparkles in the background there is yet another picture. Everything else, of course, is made here, except for these kind of streaky things. That's even another picture as well. So lots of source material goes into this one snow globe image. To stay focused on the snow globe here, and to keep this video from getting too long, I've gone ahead and done the clipping of the horse out of this image, and I've fixed the table and so forth, and I have those adjusted images. We'll be using those in this project. If you want to see the original source images, I have links for those on the materials page for this project. Okay, now this snow globe starts off with making just the first basic reflections in here for the globe. And for that, we'll be taking a different picture and doing some fun little tricks on that to give us these kind of interesting swirly, streaky things in there. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to close this file down right there. Get that out of the way. There we go. And I'll go up here to File and Open. And here are the pictures I've used to make the snow globe. This is the horse picture and the original picture as well. And then we'll take a look at that in just a bit. But we'll start off with this one over here. It's just named White. And it's just a picture of a kind of kitchen room here, maybe, and a big window in the background. Let's go ahead and open this one up. There we go, just a big white picture. Now my image is coming in as a floating window, as you see here. We'll need this ability a little later on. So if you don't have your file set up for floating windows, let me show you how to do that quickly here. Edit, come down to Preferences and General, and make sure these two checkboxes on the General tab are checked. Allow floating documents in expert mode, and also enable floating document window docking. With those two checked, you can then float your windows like this, or pull it up here and dock it just like that, so you have a bit more freedom in here on how you're working with your image. On this one though, we don't need to have this floating, so let's go ahead and dock that into position. There it is. Now we need to have this as a square and not as a rectangle. And I want to have some variation between window and background, so light areas and dark areas. So we're going to cut off the right hand side. Now the easy way to do that is up here with the image menu, come down to resize and canvas size. Let's change the measurements here to pixels. Notice how the width and the height are listed here in pixels. Down here is where it is measuring this from, so click on the left hand side, so it's going to be leaving this part of the image and trimming off the stuff over here. All you need to do is to make the width match the height. So that should, on the top here, say 1277. So they match. Choose OK. It's going to cut off part of that image, and it cuts off that right hand side part. Now it's just a nice square. I'm going to make a copy of the background layer here. Just drag it up here. I'm doing that because we'll be doing a distortion on this layer. In case I don't like how it looks, I can go back to this one if I mess things up. So I have this as my safety in there. So here we are, background copy. Now I want to take these images here and this lines, nice straight lines, and make them into more curvy lines. And we'll do that with a filter. Filter, come down to correct camera distortion. A couple things in here. First, where it says remove distortion at the top, we're going to actually use it to add in distortion. Just pull this clear to the left. It gives all kinds of distortions. It actually takes those straight lines and makes them nice kind of curved, swoopy lines, which is perfect. I also want to darken down the outsides a bit in here. So I'll come down to where it says Vignette and pull this clear to the left, all the way to the darken. It just kind of darkens it down a little bit. It doesn't do a whole lot. We'll be doing more stuff in here later. That helps the overall effect. Also, I want to have these lines, instead of being basically straight up and down, I want to have them at an angle like that. So come down here where it says angle and change the angle to 310. Choose OK. There we are. Now again, if I mess this up, I can always go back to my original, which is saved right there. Again, that's why I have a habit of working on copies and never touching the original layer. Let's now put some guidelines in here. Notice we have these control handles. We can use those to help find our guidelines. Just pull it in from the left-hand side like that. It should snap right to the center point. And that gives us a centering area in here. And the reason why I did this, even though we see a little center thing there, as soon as I change over to the elliptical tool, we're going to lose that spot. That's going to go away. So we need to have some way of spotting that center. If you don't have your ruler showing, just go up here to View and just check right there for rulers. Okay, go over to the elliptical marquee. Set feathering at 0. Aspect, you can set fixed ratio if you want to. That will give you an exact circle, 1-to-1 ratio. And then come right over the center, hold the Alt key down, and then pull out, and that will draw a perfect circle from the center. The Alt key gives you from center, and the fixed ratio down below there gives you the 1-to-1 circle. So pull it out so it's almost clear to the edge. Don't go all the way to the edge, just almost to the edge, and let go. So we have this nice selection just like that. Now we can make a layer mask out of this. Click the layer mask button. There we go. That gives us that shape and a transparent background. Now we're going to simplify this layer and just leave this as just one graphic. So right where the name is, right click on the name and choose Simplify Layer. That just collapses the layer mask down into the original graphic, and there's our nice circle. So this is what we'll be using to create those reflections for the snow globe. So let's now make a new file for our snow globe picture. File, New, blank file, 6x4, 300 resolution. Choose OK. I'm going to go ahead and dock that one. Let's now come back here to our circle. Pull this down. Here's where I want to have this floating ability. By having it floating, I can now grab this one layer over here and drag it onto this file and transfer it over that way. So let's go ahead and close this down. Again, I'm not going to be saving that one. And there's our snow globe. Now it's too big. It's also a little hard to see right now. So let's just change our background here to black instead of white. Let's go to the Paint Bucket tool. Make sure your foreground color is black and you're on Paint. Then just click outside someplace here. Also make sure you're on the background layer. There we go. And it fills the background with black. This is just for this one step, just so I can more easily see what's going on here. We won't actually be using this black for anything in the future. Okay, let's go back up here to the background copy. This is our globe layer. I'm going to rename this one Globe. There we go. And I want to resize this down 70 to 75% of this size. Now use the Control-T keyboard shortcut. That brings up the transform options down below here. And where it says width and height, I want to make this 75%. Also make sure that constraint proportions is checked, so that if I type in here, it's going to copy it over there. Okay, let's just type in 75 right here. Copies that in, and that all looks good. Click on the green check mark to set that in place. Okay, now let's pull this down just a bit. I want to bring it down about 5/8 of an inch. So grab your ruler up here and pull this down, and you can kind of see it over there, left-hand side. There's 1/4 of an inch, a little bit more than that, so that's about 5/8 of an inch, 0.30, right about there. And just make sure that the snow globe is at that point. And it should be almost centered, not quite, just a little off to the right maybe, just a touch. Doesn't need to be specific on your left and right position, that's not important. But getting it down here to about this space at the top will help the overall look of the image later on. Okay, we're done with that guideline. Let's go up here to View and Clear Guides. Get rid of that. That's fine. So there's our basic reflections and the basic snow globe position. That's all taken care of. Next, we need to do the basic transparent effects in here for this one layer. Go up to Filter, come down to Adjustments, and Invert right here makes a negative out of that. Let's adjust our brightness values. Go up to Enhance, come down to Adjust Lighting, Brightness Contrast. There we go. Take your brightness all the way up to 150. Clear the right hand side and bring your contrast down all the way to 50. So contrast down like that and brightness up. And that should be just about right. That leaves the contrast down, leaves a lot of the detail in here, as you can see there as I move that back and forth. There it is. And the brightness increases the brightness of these lines right there. Okay, choose OK. At this point we can bring in our background image and work a bit more on the transparency. Let's go ahead and do that. Go up to File, Open, and again inside of this set of images up here, you can download all these of course from my materials page. You'll see a download link for that in the description. Grab the snow globe background file, choose Open. It should come in as a floating document if you have that set up properly. Grab this layer and just drag it over here and then close that down. Now it may not be exactly positioned right, so let's go ahead and pull that in. It should snap right to the edges when you do that, and it should fit exactly. If it doesn't snap, come in here and make sure that Snap To and Document Bounds is selected in there. Okay, came in on top. Let's just drag it underneath the globe layer. There we go. I'm going to rename this one Christmas background. Okay, so there it is, and you can see here we have black now inside of this. We need to put some transparency in that. We can do that by converting the blend mode here from normal on the globe layer. There we go. From normal, and change this to overlay. So come down here to overlay, and that makes it transparent, as you can see right there. It's now seeing through. We also want to bring down our opacity a bit. I'm going to set this down to 65%, and that's looking better. Let's now take this and duplicate the globe layer, make a copy of it like that. So we now have two of these here. This actually increases the amount right in here, increases the lightness of those areas in there. And then let's merge this together. So I'm going to hold the Control key, click on this so both the globe layers are selected. Right click and merge layers. So now one layer, and it's a lot brighter again. Now notice that when we did that merge, we lost the blend up here. So let's go ahead and bring that back to overlay again. Okay, so far so good. We now need to adjust the values on this. Let's bring up our levels, enhance, adjust lighting levels, and see how the white or the bright part of this image in our histogram here is right in here, but the white numbers over here. Pull this way back over here until you get into that area there. It should be about 182 or so, just like that, 182. Just on the white side, and choose OK. You can see how it's really lightening up that area in behind now. It's acting like a light filter. This is kind of a dark filter, and that's a bit of a light filter in there. And go back up here, make sure that the opacity is still at 65. Sometimes that sets itself back to 100% there when you do that merge. Okay, that's all looking good. All this stuff is going to be the reflections then on the snow globe. At this point, we need a selection in this circle, which we can then use for a later step. So now's a good time to do that. So make sure you're on the snow globe layer over here. Go over and grab the Magic Wand tool. Tolerance can be whatever, 32 is just fine. Click outside here someplace. What we're doing is we're clicking on the transparent area in there, and that selects everything outside of the globe. Let's now invert the selection. So select inverse. So now just the globe area is selected, and let's save that selection. Select, come down to Save Selection. I'm just going to call this one Globe. And OK. You can deselect that. That's just for use later on. Now is the easiest time to grab that selection. At this point, you don't want to move the globe around, or you'll have to redo that selection for a later step. OK, now let's bring in our horse image in here. And go up to File, Open. And that's right here. It says Snow Globe Horse. It's a Photoshop file. Let me show you why in just a second here. I'll bring this in. There is the horse. Now what I have here is a horse in a carousel horse in a carousel. I'm going to hide this layer mask. Let's just go ahead and disable that layer mask. There's the original picture on there. Now all I did was I made a careful selection around the horse and then used that selection to make my layer mask. Make your selection, click the layer mask button, and it gives you that layer mask. If you want to go ahead and do that step, that's fine. I'm not going to bother with that for this video, kind of keep things a bit faster here. So I've already done that, and then I saved that as a new layer up here with the layer mask just kind of merged in. Makes it real easy now just to take this layer and drag it over here. Now the way you do that one step, let me just show you that real fast here. Take this layer here, this is the layer with the original picture and the layer mask. Make a copy of that. There we go. Right click on this and simplify layer, and that gives you that, just kind of collapses it down and gives you that image with a clear background right there. Okay, once you have this layer, just drag it over here onto our working file. There we go. Okay, I'll close that one down and I won't save that. So here's the horse. And bring the horse down about here somewhere so that the middle of the saddle right here is kind of on the middle of the circle. And let's rename this layer here. Call it the horse layer. Take this and pull it underneath the globe copy, and you should see it through the globe. Don't worry about it being kind of dark. We'll be fixing all that stuff as we go here. So there it is. Now let's go back to the globe layer, and I want to pull in guidelines at this point to find my center again on the globe. So pull a left guide and bring it right to the center point of those control handles out there. Same thing for the top. So there's the center of our globe. Come down to the Christmas background layer, make a new layer above that. This actually is a layer below the horse. And I'm going to call this one background glow. Here we go. We'll be using the gradient tool right here. Set your foreground color to white, and you should have white to transparent. Set the type here to radial. Everything else can stay the same. And then bring on top of the center mark right there. Hold the Alt key down and then drag straight down to the bottom. And it gives you this kind of a radial glow happening in here. Notice how our lines now look nice and white. That's because the radial glow gives us those white lines. So you're going to pull from the center just straight down to the bottom. Now the glow is spilling out outside, as you can see there. Here's where we need that saved selection. So select, come down to load selection, and choose globe, choose OK. There's our selection. Use this now for a layer mask. Click the layer mask button. There's a layer mask, and that cleans up that outside bit. Okay, we can now lose these guidelines. We're done with that. View and clear guides. Getting closer, as you can see. It's beginning to look like a globe at this point. Let's bring the opacity down on this layer down to 60%. Just type in 60 right there and hit the enter key. And there we go. There's a nice, just enough glow back there to help give the effect for the foreground information in here. Okay, now we're going to be going back to the globe layer. Right here it says globe copy at this point. That's our globe layer. And we'll be doing a layer style on this. So go up to layer, layer style, style settings. And in here, come down to glow. You want an inner glow, and you want the size at 60, and you want the opacity at 100. This should already be white over here, so that should be just fine. And then let's go ahead and click on OK at the bottom. There we go. So far, so good. We can now soften up these streaks just a little bit in here, again on the globe layer. Go to filter, come down to blur and Gaussian blur right there, and set this at 8. It just kind of softens everything down, as you can see in there. Just kind of makes a nice soft kind of glowy effect. Now notice that the outside edge here has become a little bit soft as well. Now this is a personal preference on this. You can leave it a little bit soft if you want to. It adds kind of a glowing effect to the outside, or you can copy the layer mask from down here. If you want to copy the layer mask, hold the Alt key down, pull that straight up to the globe layer, and that gives you a nice sharp edge. So again, that's personal preference on that. If you want a little bit of a glow on that edge, a softness, or a sharp edge, I'll leave this with a sharp edge. Okay, that takes care of all the reflections on the globe, all this kind of swoopiness stuff. Let's add a lens flare now up in here. For the lens flares, make a new layer at the top. So click on your top layer, make a new layer above that layer, fill that with black. So let's reset our foreground background color as black in front. Grab the paint bucket, click inside here. It just gives you a solid black layer. Go up to Filter, come down to Render and Lens Flare. In the lens flare, come down to the 105 prime right there. Just a big bright white kind of lens flare right there. And 100%, choose OK. So that's what you get. We'll be really having just this bit for the image. Everything else will kind of blend in, but it adds to the overall effect. Change the blend mode here to overlay. So now kind of see through everything right there, kind of an odd looking see-through effect. Take this, you can then move this up. See where the hot spot is right there? Put that right about up right in here someplace, kind of where that brick is in behind. Now it's a bit odd because of course we're seeing it on top of everything else in here. So let's copy our layer mask down here, hold the Alt key down, pull that straight up, and that's now applied just onto that background image. Blend mode is at overlay, and opacity, go here, there we go. Opacity should be at 65% again, using that same opacity as before. And it goes just a little bit more of a glow effect right in there. We now need a hot spot on this, so let's make a new layer above that globe layer. So a new layer right there above the reflection here on the globe. And back to our brush tool. Set your brush tool size down here to 65. Change your colors here to white. Make sure that your brush is a soft edge brush. If it's not, just choose a soft edge brush and then set it at 65. Come right into the middle of this glow area, right about here, and just tap it 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Gives you a big bright hot spot at that point. Okay, now we can beef up or brighten up our horse image. Let's come down to the horse layer, and let's make an adjustment layer in here for the horse layer. So it's Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Levels, and where it says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, make sure that that is checked. Choose OK. Now in here we're going to be beefing up our contrast, and that pretty much means pulling in the darks and the whites further in. So pull the blacks in towards 8, pull the whites into 214, and then adjust the middle values here to 1.11. That just brightens the horse up, as you can see right there. Once the horse gets brighter, everything else looks more transparent. And then close that down. That's all looking good at this point. Let's now go back to our globe layer in here. And let's take a look at that inner glow. I think I can make it a bit brighter. Now that we have this horse in here, I can beef that glow up a little bit. So let's just double click where it says FX. This brings back up your style settings. And we can now bring up the glow a bit more here, right by pulling on that side. I think up here about 95, 94, maybe 92. Looks pretty good. Just kind of brightening up that glow on the outer edge. That's one of the nice things about using these layer styles is you can always go back and bring them back up again and make adjustments on that. Same thing with the levels controls here for the horse. Since it's a layer adjustment, you can always double click on that icon right there. Brings back up your levels, and you can adjust your settings if you want to for the future. Okay, that's all looking pretty good right now. We're now going to be putting in the base down below. Now for this, we're using a different picture. File, Open, and I'm going to have this one right here. Choose Open, and here we go. Some nice pewter things in here. And here's this nice Stein, but the bottom of that will make an absolutely perfect snow globe base. So let's zoom in on that. And I'll get it here pretty large. Now see where the handle is right there? I want to come in just a little ways below that handle. So about right here, I'll pull a guideline down just so I can kind of see where I'm working with in here. And I want to make a selection around this and then around the reflection as well. We use this reflection also to give us our reflection for our table. Okay, now using the polygonal lasso tool, I'll just start right here at that intersection of the guideline and the side of the Stein, and then come around and just do a nice careful selection. Just do little dots kind of close together. Take your time to get your positioning just right. And work your way around the base of the Stein. and then around down here. Now at this point at the bottom, come in just a little bit, and then kind of match that, come back out again, and see if you can spot where that reflection is. It's a little hard to spot the reflection. It's not as critical, but kind of see if you can eyeball the reflection. Now when you come down to the bottom of the picture, the image should auto scroll for you, and see if you can follow that line. Again, it's kind of hard to see, but that's okay. Go over here to the right hand side. It should auto scroll again. There it is. Find that point and then work back up again. It looks like the reflection is coming in right around in here somewhere. Not that critical if you don't get it exactly right at the bottom. Don't worry about that reflection that much. Okay, and again, just work up around the Stein. Back up to the top right there, intersection, and pull straight across and find your beginning spot. See, there's like a little circle pops up there on that cursor. That's the closed position. So there's our selection. Let's just edit and copy and close that one down. And no need to save that. Now I want this in front of here and the globe in behind the base. So let's go ahead, go over here to the top layer and edit, paste, and it pastes that as a new layer on top of everything else. Let's just do some more naming in here. I'm going to name this one here lens flare. And above here, this will be the highlight. And this will be our base. I'll call this one base 1. Okay, now notice it's too small. It's not the right size. So I want to make this wider. And you can do that by just grabbing the side right here, pull it straight out. You've watched the width down below there, and watch the numbers up in here. See on the little window there right next to where I'm pulling, it says 2 inches. And down below in the width it says 1.63.93, or you could say 164. So either way, you can pull it out so it's 164 down here or out to 2 inches. Now if you come and you pull it out down here, make sure you uncheck constraint proportion so you don't also make it taller at the same time. Choose OK. So there is the basic base. Just kind of fits in nicely here. Now it's not exactly the right position yet. Get it approximately centered on the globe. Looks like right about there is about right. Let's zoom in and just touch up its position a little bit. You can see right down here, it's not quite touching the globe there. So I'll just use the up arrow keys on my keyboard. I'll just tap this up until that reaches that globe right there. Let's check our right hand side, and there's the edge, and that's pretty good. It's off just maybe a touch. I'll just tap it to the left. If there's a little bit of an overlap in here, that's fine. That looks natural. Okay, let's now zoom back out just a bit. There's a real nice metallic base. Now I want the bottom down here to actually show the wood grain through this part. So to do that, we'll need to make a copy of this whole thing. So this is our base 1. Take this, make a duplicate of that. It says base 1 copy. Pull that underneath base 1. So this part is on top and this will be underneath. Now I want to have this bottom part stretched out a little bit. Just grab this bottom control right here, pull that straight down until it is just off the page. Now notice I have a little edge showing right there. That's because we're still seeing the bottom part of this top one up here. So we need to hide this bit. So back up here to base 1, and I'm going to zoom in again on this. That's good enough. Grab the polygonal lasso tool. I just want to come in here and get this bottom out of the way. So starting outside here someplace, come down just along kind of where the shadow is here. Right along underneath that shadow. We'll do a little augmentation of the shadow a little bit later, but we'll keep as much of this as possible. You get to this point, hold the space bar, and you can then pull this picture over, let go of the space bar, and then continue on around to staying inside of that shadow area. Now once you're past this side, you can just come outside if you want to. That's fine. Space bar again for a move, and let's go around the rest of it over here and back down to our beginning. Now the reason why I could be outside here is because this actually is the edge of the picture, so being out here doesn't make any difference. Okay, there's our selection. Click on the layer mask. makes a layer mask, which then hides that background bottom bit. Now notice as I stretched down below, it gave us this little edge in here, so you need to do a little bit of an adjustment on that. That's the base down below here. You can see if I show and hide that that's that base level here. So for that, let's back out just a bit. Now you may like that, I don't know, it's up to you. But in this case, just grab this top control, pull it up until that part is hidden in behind. Just like this. Here, there it goes. Okay, now that's looking good, but we're seeing a bit of that background showing through behind the other picture. So we're just going to erase that out. Still only background copy. Grab the eraser tool, make mine a bit smaller so it's easier to control. There we go. And this come right around the edge here. And all I'm doing is I'm erasing that background layer out so it's not showing in behind. And just getting rid of that top bit. Okay, that's all taken care of. So now the background is, or the reflection rather, is on its own layer, separate from this, but it matches that image-wise. Let's now blend this into the table down below. Set the blend mode here to soft light. And it's right there. And that just blends it into our table. And then notice how it's kind of a hard edge on this. I want to soften that edge down a little bit. We use the Gaussian blur for that. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and let's set that at 4. So it just softens up that edge right in there and choose OK. And there we go. There's our nice reflection on the table. The last little thing is I want to beef up the shadow between those two areas right against the bottom edge. So let's back up here to the top part, or base 1 layer, and we'll do a layer style at this point. Layer, layer style, style settings, drop shadow, lighting angle of 90 degrees, that's straight up and down. That's correct on that one. Let's set our size at 10 and the distance at 6. And let's bring our opacity up to 64%. Now if I pull the size up and actually pull the distance back and forth, you can see there's that shadow right in there. That's all we're doing, just a little bit of a shadow just underneath that edge. So just under the edge right there at 6, and choose OK. And that finishes off that part of the base. Now we need to trim the top part to kind of curve this in to match the sphere up on top. And for this we're going to be working on the layer mask side of base 1. So double click on that side with that light blue outline. And just to help visualize this, I'm going to pull in a couple of guidelines here. So guideline on the left hand side, put right up to that corner right there. And same thing the right hand side, right to that corner right over here. Now grab the elliptical marquee tool, feathering set at 0, change the aspect to normal, so not fixed size, fixed ratio, but back to normal. And then come over here someplace on this line and grab here and pull to the right hand side and then pull down a little bit. And you should get a nice curve effect. Now you don't want to have this curve deeper than this curve is down here. You want to kind of match this curve right down here along that top. Now maybe up a little bit when you do this. Like this, if I zoomed in, it's just a little bit high. Just grab it and pull it down, just straight down until it's just exactly where you want it. And it looks like right about there is about perfect. You know, just a touch. There it is. Now we're on the layer mask, so using black, black hides, white shows. Black and our paintbrush, all you have to do is just paint right inside that layer mask, and that gives you that nice top curved edge. Okay, let's just deselect that now, deselect, and there's that bit. Okay, last little bit in here, I want just a little bit of shadowing right there. We'll do that on a new layer above this, so new layer button right there. Come down to the base 1 layer mask, hold the Alt key down, pull it straight up. So now this layer mask matches that layer mask, so the shape up here is going to match the shape that we have right down there. We're still on our brush over here. Still a soft edge brush. Make it larger though. Set this up to 100 pixels. You can see there's that nice large brush. I'm just going to paint right along here, and we'll do that on this new layer right here. Double click, look for your light blue outline, Make sure your foreground color is black, or be painting with black right here. And then just kind of right across the top there, just like that, just paint in just a little bit. Now if you go off the edges in here, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that right now. Now that's on the layer mask side. Go to the layer mask side. We still have our black paintbrush. You can now just come in here and paint like that right on the layer mask, and that hides those little bits that were sticking out there. Now it's too dark, obviously, so just change the opacity on this layer down to 40%. Just a little bit of a shadowing, just a small touch. It adds a bit to the overall effect. Okay, that takes care of the base. Let's go ahead and bring this back to fit on screen, and we can get rid of those guides as well, clear guides. A couple things left to do. We need to put in the snow base right down inside here, and of course we need to put in our magical snow sparkles in behind, and then some final tweaks at the end of the whole thing. So let's put in our snow base. Let's zoom in on the bottom again. We're still working on the bottom of this whole thing. Now for this, I want a little bit more space between the hooves and the sides there. So let's come down to our horse layer. Horse is right here. And I'll just use the arrow keys or the cursor keys in the keyboard. I'm just going to bring the horse up just a bit and over just a little bit. And just give myself a little bit of space in there. So it's about the same width as the horse's hoof. So there's a hoof and about the same space in here, and hoof about the same space in here. Little reposition on the horse. Let's now pull a guide line down from the top, just a little bit below that bounding box line in there. Not exactly on, just a little bit below. This is just a reference line. Grab from the left-hand roller, pull this into a vertical right at that point where that globe crosses that horizontal. Same thing on the right-hand side. Again, just a reference point. Now, this allows us to make another ellipse, just like we did for the base down there. So back to our elliptical marquee tool. Again, leave the feathering at 0, and it's a new selection in here. And let's grab up here someplace, doesn't matter exactly where. Come in and pull an ellipse kind of like that. Just kind of a nice ellipse in here. Now pull this up until it just reaches into those hoofs, kind of matches the hoof positions. Now it's not exactly the size I want. I want it to be outside of that hoof over here, so we need to make it just a little bit larger. So select, come down to transform selection, and then pull it down just a bit so it comes down below that hoof. And that's pretty good. And I'll pull it down just a little bit. Now we're snapping to these guidelines. That's kind of a bother, so I'm just going to come to snap to and uncheck guides, and I can have a bit more freedom on that. So right about here, so it's touching that hoof, it's touching this hoof, and that hoof is just inside of that ellipse down below here. We can now fill this with white. So let's make a new layer under the horse layer. Here's our glow, that's in behind. Let's do a new layer here above the glow, behind the horse, and then change our colors back to white in the foreground. Let's use this selection to make a layer mask for this layer. Layer mask button right there. Here's our layer mask. We can now go over here to this layer, fill this with white. So we're filling the whole layer here with white. There we go. Of course, make sure that your foreground color is on white. And that gives us that nice shape. Let's go back to the layer mask side of this. Double click, look for the light blue outline, and then a blur on this layer. Filter, come down to blur and Gaussian blur, and set this at 5. And choose OK. Just a little soft layer mask blur on that edge. So far so good. We now have this area to fill in down here. So come down and make a new layer underneath this layer here. This of course is the snow surface. Make a new layer, so come down below that layer, new layer button. There's a new layer underneath the snow surface layer, and grab this layer mask right here. This is the globe layer mask. Pull that straight up. There we go. Now fill this side over here. Go to our foreground color, and that's D, F, D, C, D, C. There it is, just kind of a light gray. Choose OK. On the paint bucket, just fill that whole layer with that. Now it goes up here into the globe. As you can see there, we need to get rid of that stuff. We'll do that right here on the layer mask side. Click on the layer mask side, make sure you see that light blue outline. Grab the black color. Make sure your color is black at your foreground down here. Go to the paintbrush. Everything is still the same. That's fine. And then just come in here and paint on that layer mask just like this until you remove everything above that. Don't worry about that edge here or that edge here. That can be just a little bit off. That's fine. It adds to the effect actually. Now scroll up and then just paint out on your layer mask all this stuff up in here. That's all not needed. And make sure you get all the edges over there. That's good. And just work your way around and clean that out. So we're just taking out everything in here, hiding it from the layer mask so that we're only seeing just the bottom of the globe on this one layer, bottom of the globe mask. Okay, left hand side in here, and let's get this around there. Looks good. Scroll down a bit more and get this last little bit. Just like that. Okay, so I have just a little bit now of this at the bottom. As you can see here, it's extending out a little bit. We'll go ahead and we'll adjust that size now. Go over here to this left-hand side. And I'm going to back out, back to fit screen. And I'm going to hide those guidelines. Just uncheck that. Bring this up a bit. Kind of a small picture here. Hard to see that one little step. Let's just zoom in. That's better. Again, control handle left hand side, pull it in. There you go. You can kind of see that left now pulling away from that edge. And the right, and then go back and forth a little bit until you have that in just a little bit of a curve in here. Seeing a little bit of that transparency just past that edge. And that looks fine. Okay, go ahead and redock this now. And back to fit on screen. So that takes care of that. Now I need to have the texture in here for our snow. That's next. I'll zoom in a little bit here, and that all looks fine. Okay, make a new layer above the snow surface. I'm going to come down here. This is going to be the snow, I'll call it snow base. It's the snow underneath the surface snow. So a new layer here above this layer. There we go. We're going to be filling this with a pattern, but I want it fitting inside of this mask. So Alt key, grab that and copy that mask up here again. Alt key and pull it up, copies that mask up. Now go over to the paint bucket right there and come to patterns. There's a pattern I have right here. It's called wrinkles. If you look at your patterns, there it is. And it's right there, that one. Just double click on that. That sets in wrinkles. And click in here. That fills that layer with that wrinkle kind of stuff. Now it looks bad. It looks like they're walking on asphalt or something. We need to adjust our values on this one. So I need to have an adjustment layer in here. Layer, new adjustment layer, levels. There we go. Where it says use previous layer, just click that, choose OK. And our settings on this one, black is at 0. That's fine. Now on the midtones, we'll set this at 8. Pushes it way over. And then on the white side, this is going to be 148. So it just lightens everything way up like that. And close that down, hides that one. Last step on this, come back down to this texture layer. We'll blur this out a little bit. Filter, blur right here, Gaussian blur, and set this at 4. And just a nice little soft layer in there, soft texture. Okay, same idea for the snow base right down in here. Now seeing a little bit of a line right there. You need to see what that line is and get rid of that line. Just walk through your layers here, check and uncheck, and as soon as that goes away, we'll know which layer that's on, and then we can fix that. Just walking my way up here, not seeing anything yet. There it is. It's the shadowing for the base. So go to the layer mask side over here, take your black paintbrush, and then just paint right over that, and that just hides that little bit. Okay, that's cleaned up. Back down to our snow base layer right here. Put a new layer above this. This will be our texture layer. I'm just going to move back over here to the move tool again. So texture layer right there. Come down to the paint bucket. Same texture. we need to have our layer mask copied from this layer up to this layer. So come down to the layer mask here, hold the Alt key down, pull that straight up, and then click inside there with the paint bucket. That brings in that texture in here. Same thing, we need to adjust the values of this layer. So layer, adjustment layer, levels. Again, check that checkbox, choose OK. Now on this one's a little different because I want a different effect. It's a different background color in here. So a little bit different on our values. Black is still at 0. Our mid values, set this at 7. And then the light values stay at 255. And close that down. And again, the same little bit of a blur in here. That's our Gaussian blur effect. Let's make sure we're on the layer down here where the texture is, and then use our same blur. There it is. So that takes care of the base down here and a kind of a snow effect on the base. Next up, a little bit of shadowing down in here. And we'll do that by coming up here to the top layer. This is our base in here. Make a new layer above this layer. New layer right here, layer 4. This is going to be our shadow on that. Now I want to have this right in along here. So for this I need to have a layer mask so we don't go over the outsides of this one. So let's grab this base layer mask, which is this one down here. Alt key, pull that straight up onto that layer. There we go. Let's make sure you're still on the correct layer here. Let's reset our colors. Black foreground, white background. Still soft brush, still 100 pixels, and I'll be painting right in here. Just a little bit of a dark edge, just kind of sweep it across just like that. Now it's too dark, obviously, so let's bring our opacity down on this, down to 50%. And that just darkens down that edge just a bit right in there. Okay, that takes care of that part. Last little thing in here is we need to set these hooves onto that top surface. Need a little bit of shadowing in here for the hooves. So let's go to our horse layer right there. Make a new layer beneath that. So again, layer underneath, new layer. Here's our new layer underneath the horse layer. Go to the paintbrush and bring the size down to about 20 pixels or so. It's still soft edge. And then just go right across, right beneath each hoof. Just a little thing, make sure on the right layer. That's correct. Just a little bit, just like that. Right there, it's a bit too much. Let me undo that one, try that one again. Just kind of straight across, there we go. And straight across over here. Just a little bit like that. And set the opacity again to 50%. Just softens up. That just kind of helps to place those hooves right onto that base in there. Okay, that takes care of all of that stuff. We're now ready to put in our magical sparkle snow. Fit on screen, all looking pretty good so far. Come down one layer here, make a new layer above that layer. There it is. So this is our little hoof shadowing. And just below that layer down here, this is going to be our sparkles. Okay. Now, go up to File, Open, and there it is. It's called NASA Stars. Choose Open. That should come in as a floating window. Drag that into our file just like that, and that should be right above that sparkles layer. Just kind of drops in right above whatever layer you are on. It comes in at that point. Okay, just pull this in so it's in behind the horse. Right there. It should fit side to side. Just a little bit larger. That's good. Leave everything alone on this. We now need to grab, let's go up to the globe layer here, grab that layer mask. So hold the Alt key down, grab that layer mask, pull it straight down, and that masks this inside. Obviously we need to blend this thing, so we're on this layer still. And go up here to the blend modes, and come down and grab lighter color right there. And that just brings in just those light colors, and that brings in the stars. Now the horse is in front of the stars, but if you have any kind of bright ones like that, you want to get rid of some of those things that are just kind of in awkward positions. So on the layer mask side, grab your paintbrush. We still have black, and I'm going to bring these sides back up to 100. Pretty good size. And I'm just going to go right around the edge of the horse here, just like that, and get rid of any of those things that are just coming in too close to the horse. That helps the horse stand out a little bit. There we go. Okay, that takes care of the stars in here. Now let's bring our opacity down on this layer. Let's go up here to the opacity, set this at 80%, and that looks real nice. Last couple of tweaks at this point. I want to take a look at our globe again, right there. And let's give this an adjustment layer at this point. So layer, new adjustment layer, levels. Again, use that checkbox right there. And now we can come in and brighten up the whites a bit, just like that, so you can really see those reflections. Just kind of pull this in until you see those nice and bright. I think somewhere around, looks around here is pretty good. 162 looks real nice. These settings for black and the midtones can stay the same. We're just bringing up the brightness of those streaks so they're really showing up well. You can go a lot more if you want to. It's really up to you on how much that you want, but I think for this picture, 162 is looking just about right. And let's go back to our horse adjustments right here. And let's just bring the horse up just a touch, I think, like that. Just a little more contrast right there. Just a little adjustment on the horse values. So 26, 1.18, and 204 looks real nice. So there we go. There is our magical snow globe effect. Last little thing, I just saw this right down here. See how I get some stars showing in right down there on that base here. I don't want to have any stars down there. So go back down to the star level here, layer mask, paintbrush, and let's just paint those out. Shouldn't be any stars down in that area. Okay, looks pretty good. Maybe pull just a little bit off of the edges in here. Just little tweaks at this point to finalize the whole image. And there we go. So there is our nice finished snow globe. Let me just get down to our background layer. There it is. You can see the whole thing. Let's bring this up full size. And stretch this out a little bit so you can see the whole picture. And there we go. There is our magical effect snow globe. Don't forget to hit that like button for this video, and of course share with your friends on social media. Just click on that share button right down there below the video. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel by clicking on subscribe. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.